Really interesting story over at the New York Times. Let's put it up there on the screen, where even some employees at One America News are speaking out, saying that they had broadcast misleading, inaccurate, or untrue statements. The craziest one to me was a guy named Marty Gollingen, who actually works there, and he's worked there since 2016, who essentially said the majority of the people did not believe voter fraud claims being run on the air, in it referencing his colleagues. And then he talked about, the Capitol mob holding a flag emblazoned with the OANN logo, saying, I was like, okay, that's not good. That's what happens when people listen to us. And you can see that throughout this entire thing, he's basically referring to so much of their coverage in terms of what they're talking about and casting doubt on it on the record to the New York Times about his current employee, which is a bold move.
Yeah,
but
something tells me he's not going to be employed there
probably
much
not
longer.
for much longer. It does speak to, and I think there was a deep frustration. This is anecdotal. I'm not speaking about OANN or anything. There were a lot of people who do work in conservative media who were deeply scarred by what happened with Stop the Steal and felt an immense amount of pressure from their audience, from their network, employee, and from outside readers and other allies in order to go along with this. And I can tell you that happened with me. Luckily, we have an audience where we don't have to rely on one segment or whatever, just Trumpers or whatever,
people just
in order
expect
to
us
survive.
To tell the truth.
Right, but for a lot of people, they built cultures and careers around just catering to a single group, and this is what happens: is you become, whenever that group becomes completely detached from reality, they want you to come with them, and they just wouldn't do it. And I think that it just goes to show the biggest problem in conservative media right now, which is that they just don't know what to do. They're increasingly isolated, talking about things which are very, very important to their base, but disconnected from the rest of the country. And it's becoming much more insular of a movement, like a circular firing squad of who's real and who's not, rather than trying to come up with something that appeals to the broader public. They are really just failing in that regard.
Yeah, and they go through in this New York Times piece, too, the nature of One America News Network's current coverage. So they still call Trump President Trump, but they just refer to Biden as Biden.
Yes, or Mr. Biden.
Right.
Yeah.
They insist that the Capitol riots were the doing of Antifa and far-left agitators, et cetera, even though, they've been hit by a lawsuit from Dominion voting, so they've kind of backed off some of their Dominion voting systems conversation. They still refer to it as the notorious Dominion voting machines, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just a whole alternative universe over there. And while it's only about 7% of the population that's had really any interaction with One American News Network in terms of getting their news and information, it's a more sizable chunk of Republicans. And frankly, the coverage there is unfortunately in line with what a lot of Republicans have been led to believe about what happened in the election, what happened in January 6th, and what reality actually is. So that's why this is significant. It's always just also interesting, and we've kind of speculated about this privately too, of who in the media really believes the crap that they're saying. And who is just putting on a show because it's good as a grift, basically, because it's good for their career, good for business. I remember when we watched the Greg Kelly talking about Major, the Biden's dog, and being like,
mangy dog.
This is before even any of the biting incidents or anything. It was it's a mangy dog, not a presidential dog. Did a whole segment on just I think he called him a junkyard dog.
Yes, yeah, he did.
He's is this guy just playing a character? Is this just a show that he's putting on? So this piece would seem to indicate that for at least some people at One America, it is just a show that they're putting on. They know it's not really true. My experience, I'd be curious if this is your experience too. I've spent a lot of time in Fox News green rooms. I've been on, almost all of their shows. I've spent a lot of time, obviously, at MSNBC, working there, sometime at CNN, but maybe not as much on that network. I would say in general, people at MSNBC, even when they're totally wrong, they actually drink the Kool-Aid. They really actually believe most of what they're saying. At least that was my experience there, but that was also before the Russia era. I felt like commentators on the right and at Fox News, there was more of an acknowledgement that this is a show. that this is a president, that we're entertainers, kind of the Rush Limbaugh model of anytime he'd come under attack, he's like, I'm just a comedian, I'm just an entertainer here. Or even you could say the Jon Stewart model, because that was always his fallback too, was like, why are you listening to me? I'm just a comedian, I'm just an entertainer. That's been my experience, but again, I wasn't at MSNBC during the Russiagate era, so things may have changed over there, where they're also just sort of feeding the grift machine and know that what they're saying is largely false.
There are some true believers. Really what it is everybody knows how you're supposed to act to get more time on cable, right? It's a limited amount of time. You have to be very animated. You let it all out there on the playing field within 2 minutes rather than trying to make 12 minutes in order to make a point. Part of the reason I despise the format and very rarely do it.
And why it's horrible for the country.
Why it's very bad for the country, because you're only getting 2 minutes of somebody's like turned up to 12, and you think that that's the way that you're supposed to act in politics. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
Like if you were in a normal conversation with somebody and you acted that big, be like, calm down, man.
What is wrong with you?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah,
but that's how you're supposed to act whenever you're on TV, or at least on that format with TV.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why so many people are disgusted with it. So it's about genuine belief, business interest. People want to keep getting on networks, so you know how you have to act in order to get on the network. And it's just all a game. And that's part of the reason why we both do this, because we're both just like, I'm so sick of this shit.
Yeah.
And that's really what I think a lot of these people, they don't know how to escape. It's their only real lifeline. And it's just a business with terrible incentives all the way up.
And if you don't say, it's not like on most of cable news, it's not like they want you to say something original and interesting.
Oh, never.
No,
Yeah,
they want you to say
the
what they want you to say. Yeah. They want you to be on your talking points for whatever side of the aisle you are on, and have some fake confrontation with whoever your panelist is, and then, when the lights are off, when the segment's over, everybody just goes back to like being normal.
Clinking drinks.
Tomorrow on Rising, Jen Rolsworth-Karp and Rachel Bovard are here for Team Rising.
That's right. And executive editor at the American Prospect, David Dane, he's going to discuss why Senate Republicans are opposed to public investment in the American Jobs Plan. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our videos. Don't forget to like and share as well. And we will see you all tomorrow.
Have a good one, guys.